Yesterday, I did a video about the protests in which I said it's important that we pay attention to the message of the peaceful protesters. I believe they have a very valid argument right now, and we shouldn't allow ourselves to be distracted by outside groups who just want to pillage. And I stand by that 100%. I do believe we have an issue in this country where the government has turned local law enforcement agencies into private standing armies that answer only to them, not even the courts. We need to get rid of qualified immunity, all those things that make police officers above the law, and we need to reform our police departments. And I think people need to pay attention to these protesters, because when you have a corrupt police department, where it shows first is in poor communities, black communities, etc. And we need to start paying attention, because when they can easily clear out them whenever they have a problem with them, they'll be able to clear out us whenever they have a problem with us owning guns or expressing our anti-government views in the future. So I stick by that 100%. But since I've said that, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's easy for you to say. You don't have people trying to burn your house or business down. Well, you know what? If someone did try to burn my house or business down, and people have asked me this, what would you do if they did? I would treat that person like a criminal. At no time yesterday did I ever say tolerate the looters and the vandals. I said ignore them when it comes to paying attention to the message of the actual protesters. I agree with people's right to peacefully protest, and I think that should never be stomped on. I especially don't think you should bring in military forces to clear out a peaceful protest just because a president whose feelings were hurt when people were calling him Bunker Boy wanted to have a photo op to make himself look tough. I hate to break it to you, you don't look tough when you have the standing army move in, take out peaceful protesters, and then march across the field with Secret Service flanked all the way around you, even though you made them stand at a distance to make it look like I'm alone and I'm brave. That was a bunch of fucking bullshit, and it just made you look worse. I don't know who's planning your shit, but that was a bad idea. And plus, I don't like that notion that peaceful protesters were stamped out. Peaceful protest is one of our constitutional rights, just like the right to carry this gun that's on my hip right now. So I don't agree with that at all. But also, I want to add today, because I didn't want to add anything yesterday, because I didn't want to muddy the message of pay attention to the message. But to address those people that are like, well, what would you do? What would you do? Well, I think, like I said, someone walks up my driveway with a torch during a protest, they're going to be treated like a criminal. Although I'm not going to use that as an effort, as a reason to break up the peaceful protest down the street. Not going to do that. I will say treat the criminals like criminals. And that's why I think these rioters, these looters, which are both right-wing and left-wing now, we know that. We know that one of the alt-right groups have been sponsoring violence and posing as Antifa, etc. And we know real Antifa are there. We know anarchy groups are there, etc. All these people. And there are just a lot of opportunistic, I know a lot of people leave out, there's just a lot of opportunistic teenagers and stuff in these neighborhoods that love to smash and grab. But as far as I'm concerned, once you start smashing or grabbing, once you break a glass or cross a threshold, you've lost all benefit of the doubt. You have lost all rights to any assumption that you were a good person. And I think the fact that this is happening at such a scale during these protests is a perfect reason of why we need two things. We need more armed individuals, because if those people in the street knew that, hey, those shop owners are probably guarding their stuff and they're probably armed, you'd see a lot less of that. But they know there's not a lot of defense. A lot of people aren't set up to defend themselves. So I think this is a perfect example of why if you own a business, if you own a home, if you own anything, you should be armed and prepared to defend yourself. And I think you would be perfectly in your rights. You'd be perfectly within your rights to do so if someone broke into your business, broke into your home, etc. You don't have to wait around and see, are they going to just break in and steal, or are they going to break in and beat me up and steal, or burn my house down with me and my kids in it, or my business down with me in it. You don't have to wait and see that. The second they cross that threshold, I think they've given up all assumptions of innocence. They know they're not supposed to be in there. Also, I think this is a perfect example of why we need to take back the militias in this country. For so long, we've allowed the militias to just be this fringe group. It needs to be a more involved thing. I mean, every person, when you go down to register for your driver's license, you should be able to check, yes, I want to be part of the militia. Because if we had actual militias during this time, we wouldn't have to bring in the military, and law enforcement wouldn't be given, a reason to go out and just stomp on people, because we would be able to take care of ourselves. Now, I know a lot of people consider the militia, oh, that's vigilante justice. No, it's community policing. It's something the founding fathers believed in. If we had a large group of concerned armed citizens who could say, hey, there's going to be peaceful protests tonight. We're going to go down and line the sidewalks and do two things. We're going to make sure the police don't abuse the protesters, and we're going to make sure the fringe elements don't invade businesses or private homes, which private homes hasn't been a problem yet, but businesses has been. If we had that, we wouldn't see the issues we're having. Right now, you got a lot of people playing off of the fact and, basically capitalizing on the fact that these same law enforcement and politicians, etc., that are trying to crack down on the protests have also been disarming the population for decades now. And they know that. They know most people are defenseless. So we need to see this as an example of why we need to be armed as individuals and why we need a stronger militia. A stronger militia to not just defend businesses, but defend those protesters too. Those protesters should be able to march down that street peacefully. We close off streets for parades and everything else in this country. You can close it off for a peaceful protest. And I think to let them have the street, the sidewalk should belong to law enforcement and the militia to guard businesses and to make sure the protesters are safe. That's just the way I see it. I mean, a lot of people are going to have a problem with that. Yesterday, I pissed off the right-wing people. Today, I'll piss off the left-wing people. Because I do believe that's how it was meant to work. And a lot of people have no faith in their fellow man. They're like, oh, if we have a militia, they're just going to be a bunch of right-wing nut jobs who just start shooting protesters. I don't believe that for a second. I am around gun people every day. I talk to gun people every day. I talk to right-wing people every day. Most people are just people. And they act like people. They don't act like ideologues. The people that are like, woohoo, Trump did it yesterday. That's such a tiny fraction of people. Most people are like, that was abhorrent. Using the military on American soil as a police action when it wasn't justified. Going and holding the Bible up like, look at me, I'm a good Christian. How do you hold this thing? What do you do with it? Do you look at it? Do you read it? What is it? Is it a book? That didn't do anybody any good. But like I said, a stronger populace, a strong, well-organized militia, all that would do us some good. Because we can have both things. We can have huge protests that shut down the state if they need to when the cause is dire enough, while still maintaining order through public policing, through community involvement. That's what we need to get back to in this country. So I firmly support the protesters. I support their cause. And I also support every single shop owner who fires on someone who breaks their window. I support every homeowner who arms themselves in case someone does try to torch their home or come to their home with bad intentions. So, in fact, I think they are not mutually exclusive. So many people think, oh, you're either free to protest or you have an armed society where people, shoot each other, blah, blah, blah. No, I think one ensures the other. Having a strong population, an organized militia, I think that ensures that people will be able to walk the streets and voice their concerns without being stomped on by a government that has no limits anymore, that doesn't serve the people, that only serves special interests. So, like I said, supporting the protesters and supporting the people who have guns and will fight back against these looters, etc. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. And having a strong militia doesn't mean people don't get to speak their mind. It means people get to speak their minds more often and more safely.